You will regret not remembering this, Jungkook. The sentence that echoed in the training room is now the biggest puzzle that is tearing the peace of the army. What does Taehyung mean? Is this a warning or a farewell? This sentence full of mystery was uttered just before they returned to the military camp. But more surprisingly, it wasn't just Taehyung's words, but Jungkook's reaction afterwards. There were tears. There was silence. And something is clearly hidden. Is this the end of their relationship? Or is it precisely the beginning of an explosion of conflict that has been covered up? Long news article. What does Taehyung mean? Army finds new clues from his mysterious sentence. They stand opposite each other, eyes on each other. The breath of both was heavy, but not because of the military exercises that had just been completed. There is something much deeper than just physical fatigue. It's about emotions that have been burning for a long time, but all this time can only be quietly buried behind a professional smile and a camera that keeps up. And in the midst of that unusual silence, the sentence was heard. Slow, but sharp. Warm, but piercing. You will regret not remembering this, Jungkook. No one knows for sure who heard it first. There are no official cameras recording. But someone, whether from the staff, whether from the inner circle, spread a short audio recording that was only 7 seconds long. And that was the beginning of this storm. The army reacted. The K-pop world is in shock. But one question still hangs in the air and continues to torment the minds of every fan. What exactly did Taehyung mean? Is this a form of resentment? Harsh reprimand? Or some kind of veiled confession? Why was that sentence so heavy? And more than that, why did Jungkook's reaction make it all the more mysterious? Jungkook didn't answer. No words came out of his lips. But the body is sculpted. His eyeballs couldn't hide. They were watery. Some said he was holding back tears. Others insisted that he had just realized something. But whatever it was, one thing was certain. Taehyung knew the effect of that sentence. He knew Jungkook was going to get hit. And he did it intentionally, but why? Don't think I'll always be there to warn you. That's a continuation of a sentence from another piece of audio that is strongly suspected to come from the same conversation. Now, the army began to put together a puzzle. Some claimed that Taehyung felt Jungkook had crossed the line. But what limits? Was it a personal relationship, a professional dispute, or more likely, a message Jimin had conveyed that fueled tensions between them? Because this is not the first time Jungkook looks emotional after interacting with Taehyung. In a workout video that was leaked to social media, Jungkook left the room with a frustrated expression after talking to Taehyung for 5 minutes. No audio, just gestures. But from there, the army began to realize there was an unusual tension, but no one expected that the tension would peak just before they returned to the military base. Taehyung is known as a figure who rarely shows emotion in a direct way. It's subtle. He plays with words. The words he uttered this time, so vivid, so personal. It's like a wound that's been buried for a long time. And while everyone thought that Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship had returned to normal after Jimin's clarification incident some time ago, reality showed the opposite. Something's not right, and the army does not stand still. They began to dissect every tape, every eye rolling, even every seemingly unrelated post, but in fact, they filled each other in on this huge puzzle. One of the fanbase accounts revealed that before the incident, Taehyung was seen alone in the waiting room with a gloomy face. There was someone from the staff who said that he banned anyone from entering for 30 minutes. What was he doing in that room? Is he making up the words he's going to say? Or is he just trying to calm himself down from the inner conflict that he has been enduring? I don't want you to repeat the same mistake. A third sentence that then emerged from a snippet of the message transmitted through their closed communication platform. This sentence is claimed to be Taehyung's last message to Jungkook before their departure to the military camp. But what error is meant? Is there anything Jungkook did in the past that is now imprinted in Taehyung's heart? Army began to attribute it all to one moment. The moment when Jimin briefly disappeared from the radar of social media for almost 3 weeks. The moment when rumors say that there was an internal debate between the 3 members who are closest emotionally, Taehyung, Jungkook, and Jimin. Does Taehyung feel that Jungkook is not defending Jimin? Or is it just the opposite, that Jungkook keeps something from Taehyung that cracks their relationship? When it all started to lead to personal conflict, another surprise came. A former choreographer who had worked with BTS during rehearsals for the military stage mentioned that Taehyung has a unique way of warning someone. It is never frontal, but if he has spoken directly, it means that someone has exceeded the limit. And the phrase, according to the choreographer, is not just a reprimand, but a final warning. Jungkook looked devastated afterwards. He looked down for a long time, not even answering when one of the staff called him. Then he disappeared from radar for 2 days. Fans noted that there was no activity from the official account nor any posts from Jungkook during that time. Even the staff only said that he was undergoing adjustments before returning to Unity. But the ARMY doesn't believe it. They know more than anyone that Jungkook cannot be silent for no reason. There are hidden wounds. And the wound was clearly inscribed by Taehyung's words. However, does all this mean that their relationship is deteriorating? Or is Taehyung doing this because he cares? Is it possible this is his way of showing affection the hard way? We know affection between BTS members is not always shown with hugs or laughter. Sometimes it is precisely behind those sharp words there is the deepest love. But did it happen this time? ARMY began to split. Some thought Taehyung was too harsh. Others believed that Jungkook needs to be reprimanded. But what exactly happened? Why did Taehyung choose those words? And why is Jungkook so devastated by it? This question hangs without an answer. But among all the mysteries, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Something has changed. Not just between them, but in the hearts of everyone who has always believed that BTS's bond will be unshakable. That sentence, however brief, had disturbed the calm. And we're all waiting, not just an explanation, but honesty. Because behind Taehyung's eyes when he said it, and behind Jungkook's silence after hearing it, there was an unfinished story. I ask this the beginning of the end? Or is it precisely the turning point that will open the wounds that have been covered by the smiles of the cameras and the lights of the stage? ARMY deserves to know. The world deserves to know. And maybe, behind all this, Taehyung just wants one thing, to make Jungkook really realize that not everything he has will always wait. That even the closest of friends can choose to leave if hurt too often. And if it is true, then the sentence is not just mysterious. That sentence continues to linger in the minds of those who witnessed Taehyung and Jungkook's closeness from the beginning of the debut. Not only because of the sharp content, but because of who said it and to whom it was addressed. When two figures who had been seen as inseparable were actually involved in a conversation that left a wound, the entire foundation of trust that had been built by the ARMY began to crack slowly. You will regret not remembering this. These sentences are not just words. It is a symbol of something much bigger, deeper, and darker than the public has ever known. And ARMY knows. No word comes out of Taehyung's mouth without a hidden meaning. Now, the pieces of the past are back in place. The ARMY begins to reinvestigate all the interactions that seemed mundane before, but now feel like the starting signal for a massive storm that's starting to roll in from beneath the surface. Remember that live broadcast Jungkook made a few months ago, when he suddenly paused for a moment and smiled wryly when asked about someone who has recently changed? At that time, no one described it as something important. But now, it all feels relevant. Does that refer to Taehyung? Is Jungkook's silence a sign that he is actually holding back something? And furthermore, what exactly has been going on behind the scenes, away from the media spotlight, that makes Taehyung feel the need to say such a thing? Some sources say that before that moment, Taehyung and Jungkook had been involved in a heated argument. Not in a high tone, but in a silent language that is so painful. Each other dodged each other in the space that was supposed to be where they trained together. And oddly enough, the staff seemed to let that happen, as if understanding that this was no ordinary quarrel. It's a battle between two hearts that holds too many wounds that are never spoken about. If it weren't for me, everything would have collapsed much faster. Another sentence that emerged from Taehyung's mysteriously scattered notes of private conversations. No one knows who spread it. But everyone is convinced this is a truth that can no longer be held back, and the word collapse here is not just a metaphor. It's about their relationship, about BTS, about beliefs that have been burdened with expectations for too long without room for honest talk. So, is Taehyung blaming Jungkook? Or do you blame yourself for being silent for too long? These questions hound. But is this really the end of everything? Will one sentence destroy the foundation of the friendship they have built for more than a decade? Or is it just an alarm, a final warning before it's too late? The ARMY cannot remain silent. Community forums are full of theories, video analysis, and even fans retranslating every little moment between them, smiles, looks, to the tone of voice, as if figuring out where exactly the breaking point happened. Some find it surprising. There's been a noticeable change in the way Taehyung treats Jungkook since the awards show late last year. The normally warm gaze went blank. The usual close hug becomes just a formal pat on the shoulder. And Jungkook? He couldn't hide his guilt. On one occasion behind the stage of a farewell concert before they entered the military, cameras captured him standing alone in a narrow hallway. Head down, hands clenched into fists. I didn't know there was a camera there. He did not know that the ARMY would see the tears finally fall, slowly but surely. The tears were not for fear of facing the military, not because of public pressure, but because it loses something much deeper: the trust of the person who understands him best. Some say that Taehyung has always been an anchor for Jungkook. Amid popularity, career pressure, and world expectations, only Taehyung can pull him back to the ground. Only Taehyung knows how to make her laugh again when the world seems too hard to deal with. But now, the anchor is slowly slipping away, and even more frightening, Taehyung, who had been known to be patient, chose to remain silent. There is no clarification.
No shooting uploads.
Only one sentence was uttered to his close colleague in a brief interview before he was put on duty. Sometimes, letting someone learn from their loss is the only way they can truly understand. ARMY trembled as this quote began to circulate. Is this an admission that he is punishing Jungkook emotionally? Not because they want to hurt, but because they want to save their relationship. But that decision came at a price. A price that must not only be paid by Jungkook, but also by the millions of hearts that await their togetherness. Because in every relationship, there is always someone who has to give in first. And if both choose silence, who will save what is left? There are small voices within the fandom that are starting to ask further questions. Is this just about personal mistakes? Or is there something else that makes it all more stressful? Some former staffers have suggested that internal relations within the group have been strained by management's non-transparent decisions regarding individual schedules and military deployments. There are whispers about Jungkook's solo project being forced to be completed quickly in order to catch up on his military enlistment schedule, while Taehyung's project continues to be delayed, even when he is mentally ready. It's those little stacked injustices that slowly become time bombs. And now the bomb has exploded. In a post sent by a longtime fan to the ARMY forum community, a heartbreaking sentence appeared. We are waiting for them to make peace, but maybe they are waiting to be able to understand each other first. And that could mean a very long time. Does this mean that there will be a long distance? When they come back from the military, can they still talk without a scar? Surprisingly, another BTS member, who did not want to be named, is said to have told the production team that Taehyung just wants to be appreciated. He just wants to know that his presence is important, not just when needed as Jungkook's emotional protector. A piercing sentence, and opens up a side of Taehyung that has never been seen, the fragile side of someone who always looks calm. Now it is clear that the words he uttered before they left for the ARMY were not a threat, but a plea. The application is packaged in the form of a reminder. He wants Jungkook to realize that without respect and understanding, love is not enough to sustain anything. But what made ARMY tremble the most was Jungkook's reaction after hearing that sentence. He didn't answer. He just stared at Taehyung for a few seconds, then walked away without a word. A moment that was accidentally recorded by a security officer and leaked to a closed community of fans. That look is not anger, but it's broken. What is really behind Jungkook's reaction? Does he know he has been hurt? or still feel innocent? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. After that moment, Jungkook refused all requests for personal interviews, even for joint military promotion projects. He performed only collectively and answered only questions of a neutral nature. His coldness signals that he is not ready for anything related to Taehyung, and more poignantly, when asked about the hardest thing leading up to his enlistment, Jungkook replied quietly, leaving that unfinished. The sentence made an impression, because everyone knows it's not a music project that he meant, but someone. Now the question hanging in the air is no longer about what does Taehyung mean, but will Jungkook act before it's really too late? ARMY could only hope that the sentence, as harsh and painful as it was, could be a door, not the wall